Welcome to the Year 4 Stay and Learn workshop. We're going to talk to you today all about all of the fabulous things that we do at DBSJP to help promote learning for your children. So the purpose of today really is to give you a good understanding of what it's like to teach and to learn in a British curriculum school here in Dubai. We'll explore the curriculum expectations for Year 4 and we'll be really focusing on science today, as that is the lesson that parents will be invited to see once you visit the classrooms. We'll talk you through how lessons are planned, how they're delivered, and how you can support at home too. So teaching and learning at DBSJP. So our curriculum is the national curriculum for England and Wales, but it's also supplemented by the expectations that are placed upon us by the governing body here in Dubai, which is the KHDA. Our curriculum here at JP is designed to be broad, balanced, and really focused on skills, making sure that those skills are taught in a way that really enable our children to go out into the world and be lifelong learners. We focus predominantly on the core subjects, which is English, maths and science, but that is also taught alongside Arabic and Islamic here in the UAE, and we supplement this with arts, PE and languages. Our language of choice for Year 4 is French. The idea for our national curriculum is that the knowledge and skills build on each other year on year. So new learning sticks to old learning. We continue to build on the skills that they are acquiring lower down the school, and we implement those and build on them as the children make their way through Key Stage 2. Year 4 is a really important year. It's a year where the children they've already had 1 year in Key Stage 2, that's Year 3. They're coming into their second year of Key Stage 2, and they really are focusing on developing their independence. You're probably finding that at home as well, that the children are starting to voice that they want to be more independent around the home. And then we also really think about how we can build responsibility and resilience in our young people too. So what is special about Year 4? As I said already, it's the second year that the children are in Key Stage 2. So they are starting to feel a bit more comfortable in their environments. When they're in Year 3, being upstairs, being in Key Stage 2 feels quite new. It's quite different from being in Year 2 where they have a full-time TA and things. But by the time they get to Year 4, they've really started to find their feet and understand what it means to be a Key Stage 2 child. In addition to kind of the extra responsibilities and things that we place upon the children in the classroom, they do also have some other wider opportunities that they don't have lower down the school. So things like PE, the children will go into sets rather than staying in their class for PE. And so they'll start to mingle with other children more regularly as the curriculum progresses. It's also the year that the children have their very first overnight residential trip, and I know it is the absolute highlight of Year 4 for any child that gets to come along on that, and this year will be absolutely no different. And then it's also a year where the Cat 4 assessments are introduced. So GL assessments take place every year from Year 2 upwards, but once we get to Year 4, this is the first year that the children experience a Cat 4 assessment, which aims to diagnose their style of learning. So have they got a strength in spatial awareness? Are they better with language, and so on? And it gives us a bit of a learner profile that we use as we go into Years 5 and 6. So how we plan the curriculum here at JP. So we start with the national curriculum for England and Wales, as well as the guidelines placed upon us by the KHDA, and we map that out in a year-long, long-term plan. So we look at the curriculum, we look at how it can be divided into sections, we look at which sections work best with the terms that we're in school. So our winter term and our summer term are much longer than our spring term. So we try and put the kind of bigger objectives, the meatier objectives into those terms of learning and so on. So we start with those yearly plans. From here, we break them down into a smaller chunk, which become our curriculum maps, which you get sent home as parents to see. And that will also be accompanied with a theme. So for Year 4, the first theme of the year is the rainforest. So in addition to the English, maths and science that we have planned, we run the theme alongside it and we try and interweave those two things together. From here, teachers take their termly curriculum maps and they create weekly planning documents, and they will map out the maths lessons, say, for that week, so that we can make sure there is that progression of skills as the unit progresses. But this is also constantly assessed and refined. So in every single lesson, teachers will be doing what we call formative assessment. They'll be assessing the children, seeing how they're understanding the concepts, and seeing if we need to adapt or refine what we're doing in class to make sure that the concepts are really secure with the children before we move on to the next stage of learning. That assessment is also used by teachers to look at who we need to target extra support for, but also who we need to find ways to stretch and challenge in their learning. We don't just assess in the moment, we also reflect on our practice. So as we get to the end of a unit, we get to the end of a half term or the end of a term, we look back at what's been and think about what could we have done differently? Would it have been better if we'd moved objectives around? Would have helped children to pick things up a bit quicker? Or we look at what we could do better next time or in the next term to help support the children's learning going forward. And that feeds into our yearly planning as a school. What are the needs of our children and what do we need to do to provide for them? So another thing that you'll see a lot of as you make your way around classrooms today is the visible learning approach. So Dubai British Schools as a cluster adopted the visible learning approach by John Hattie, and it's made up of many components, but the things that we're really focusing on in term one that you're going to see in the learning today are clear learning intentions. So lessons begin with teachers setting out the learning objective, making it very clear to the children what it is they're going to be learning that day. And the idea is that the children can articulate that back to other adults and to each other in the room as well. That's also then supported by success criteria and that guide that process, so children know at every stage of the lesson what is expected of them and what they need to do in order to be successful. And that helps them with their own reflection on their learning and to understand what didn't I know before that I know now, but also where is my learning going next. The teacher will make all of this happen with really good quality open-ended questions, and those questions are designed to promote deeper level of thinking amongst the students. We want the children to get the correct answer, of course, but what we're most interested in really is how they got to their answer. What is the learning and the understanding that underpins that? And with all ages of children, we want them to really develop their collaboration skills. So we want children working together. We want them to be able to go out into the wider world as adults and be able to work as part of a team. And we also want them to be able to reflect on their learning. So what did I understand today? What don't I understand that I need more help with? What could I do better? Or even just a celebration, what did I do really well? So the spotlight on science today. So you're going to see a science lesson being taught in year 4, and you're going to see a science lesson that follows one aspect of the wheel that you can see on the screen in front of you there. So we set up our science inquiry in a way that enables the children to kind of go through a scientific process. It starts with asking questions. So we will pose the children quite an open-ended question, and their job is to start to plan an inquiry-based experiment that would help them to answer that question. Once they've planned their investigation, their job is to set it up effectively. So these sorts of things can take several weeks at a time. They'll set up their investigation and they'll make predictions about what they think is going to happen. It's really important that we emphasize to the children that their predictions don't have to be correct. The whole point in the investigation is that they can prove or disprove their prediction. From here, their job is to observe and to record data, to measure things, and to have a really good understanding of what they can see happening in front of them. They then go on to recording this, and we teach them how to record with tables, graphs, images, diagrams, making sure things are clearly labelled and labelled scientifically. And then we want the children to be able to interpret and reflect upon those results. So that would enable them to come up with an evaluation of the question that they have tested. The idea of our science curriculum at JP being built around this model was that it builds critical thinking and problem solving. And really, again, like we said, we're not as interested in the children getting the right answer as we are them going through that learning process and understanding how they got there. We really want to make sure we're promoting hands-on investigation, so resources will be out on tables, the children will be allowed to get hands-on and making those kind of memorable discoveries that deepen that level of scientific understanding. Today's science lesson is all about research. So the children are going to be researching the impact of changing habitats on animals, and that follows the interpret and report part of the investigation wheel that I shared with you just a moment ago. What you'll see in classes is a choice for the children. They can present their learning in ways that they see fit. So we're trying to make sure that our science learning isn't prescriptive. Children have the opportunity to make choices in their learning, and they can choose how to present that to each other. You're going to see them using iPads. We're going to have some fact books out. There'll be some research sheets and some interactive games that the children can work collaboratively to use in order to deepen their knowledge and understanding. You'll also see, working alongside these resources, visual prompts and scaffolds that help the children to organise their thoughts. They might come with key questions, they might come with success criteria that guide children through that process. And then also the adults in the room. So traditionally that would be us, maybe a learning assistant, but today as parents, that will be you as well. The idea with the adults in the room being there to support is not to give answers, but to ask questions that allow the children to take the lead. So your role in the classroom today as a parent is to sit with the children, don't stand back and be shy, get involved, but asking open questions. Why do you think that? What do you think? Have you got any ideas as to why that might be the case? Can you use some of the research that you have in front of you as evidence to support your idea? We'd also like children using as much scientific vocabulary as possible. So we're thinking about things like habitats. We're not talking about places where animals live. We're using that scientific vocabulary that goes with that. And then again, helping those children to explain and reason their ideas. How have they got to the conclusion they've arrived at? And for you as a parent, it's about letting your child lead the learning. Avoid correcting them, but ask clarification questions instead. I think I heard you say this. Can you explain this to me? What are you learning today? How do you know this is what you're learning? And then how you can help at home. This is the really fun bit. So science in particular is a great one for getting children involved in home. Encourage lots of curiosity. When the children are asking questions, as they quite often do when you're in the car, put it back on the children. Why do you think, or what do you think might be the reason? Try simple scientific things like cooking, going out in nature, doing nature walks, household investigations, getting out equipment at home, something like a measuring jug, a stopwatch, a ruler. All of those things really help the children to develop their critical thinking in the home. And also by praising the children. What we want to foster is a love of learning, a love of science, and just really promoting the children's inquiry. So praise them for their effort, praise them for their teamwork, and praise them for their problem solving skills when they show them. And that's it. So we'll head off into classrooms now. You'll get to see some of this learning taking place, and we invite you to come back and see us at the end of the session. Thank you so much.